lower overall deficit as compared to the previous period. He also mentioned that there was a higher than expected inflow from the value-added tax, the citizenship by investment receipts, which were 126% above the estimates for 2018-2019. Of the over $1.5 billion that is being presented in the estimates, $306 million is estimated to go towards new projects for 2019-2020, a 6% increase over the approved budget for the previous period. $119 million of that is expected to come from external sources. We heard from the Parliament representatives for Castries East, Philip J. Pierre, the representative for Grosley, the Honorable Leonard Montoute, representative for Castries Central, Sarah Flood Bobera, Castries South, Ernest Hilaire, for Ancillary and Canneries, Dominic Fede, and the representative for Soufrière Font Saint-Jacques, Honorable Herod Stanislas. Some of the capital projects to be undertaken this financial year are in the areas of infrastructure, education, health, and sports. Okay. For example, under the Ministry of Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment, we will see funding going towards the Social Safety Net Reform Project, the Juvenile Justice Reform Project, and the BNTF-9. Some $69,467,800 is being allocated to that ministry. Likewise, the Ministry of Tourism, Information and Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, according to the report by the Standing Finance Committee, will be allotted some $50 million.
A budget is actually a plan, a financial plan that details your projected income, your projected expenditures. And this is something that's typically done not just by the government but by average household, businesses, and of course what is normally done is that you would engage in an exercise where you would have to estimate your revenues and your expenditures and to determine whether you have a surplus or a deficit.
Okay. Now you talked about revenues. As I said, as we're speaking more in regards to the government, where would the government get the revenues from for the budget?
Well, typically, revenues would be derived from the taxes that the government would impose on the citizens. You would also have instances where friendly governments, donor organizations, giving grants to the government of St. Lucia, and that together with the taxes that are imposed as well as other fees that are charged for other, for instance, you would have drugs and so on that are sold by the pharmacies, and other services generally that the government would charge for. All of these together would comprise the government's revenue for a given year. Okay, all right.
Now you also talked about expenditure. I guess in regards to that, I know that there are two types of government expenditure. I believe there's current expenditure and capital expenditure. Can you tell us a little bit about what the difference, so first of all, what is current expenditure, what is capital expenditure, and what is the difference mainly between the two?
Yes. Well, current expenditure would normally involve expenditure on your normal operations. So, for instance, you pay salaries, your utility bills and so on, so you have lots of fixed expenses that would be included as part of current expenditures. So,
let us pray. Almighty God, by whom alone kings reign and princes decree justice, and from whom alone cometh all counsel, wisdom, and understanding, we thine unworthy servants here gathered together in thy name, do most humbly beseech thee to send down thy heavenly wisdom from above, to direct and guide us in all our consultations. And grant that we, having thy fear always before our eyes, and laying aside all private interests, prejudices, and partial affections, the result of all our counsels may be to the glory of thy blessed name, the maintenance of true religion and justice, the safety, honor, and happiness of the Queen, the public weal, peace and tranquility of St. Lucia, and the uniting and knitting together of all hearts of all persons and estates within the same, in true Christian love and charity, one towards another, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost be with us all evermore. Amen. Statements by ministers. Motions. Let me remind the Honorable House that the motion before this House is that the Honorable House of Assembly do adopt the report of the Standing Finance Committee on the estimates of expenditure for the financial year 2019-2020 in the sum of $1,591,589,000 as a charge against the consolidated fund and other funds of the state of St. Lucia. Member for Denrinoff.
That's good. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning, colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I rise for the 8th time in as many years to make a contribution in the Parliament of this country on the debate on the estimates of revenue and expenditure, or what the average St. Lucian prefers to call the national budget. And as I rise, Mr. Speaker, I am reminded of the struggles of the people whose interests, concerns, and aspirations I represent in the Parliament, the people of Dennery North. A constituency partitioned into the communities of Olio, Despin, La Pelle, La Ressource, Grand Ravine, Belmont, Richford, Tamazo, Dibonnet, Grand Rivière, Gadet, and Denier Rivière, each with its own unique characteristics, but all united in their pursuit of excellence through hard work and determination. They were the ones, Mr. Speaker, the constituents or residents of those communities, who went to the polls in the last 2 general elections to repose their collective confidence in my ability to lead the charge on their behalf in the scheme of national development. And for that, I remain eternally grateful. Mr. Speaker, je voulais prendre l'occasion pour remercier tout le Dennery North qui a voté pour moi en 2 élections. Pour moi autorisation pour venir à Caïcosit et pour parler bayo et pour mener devant le gouvernement, c'est là qui a affecté yo et puis la vie yo Epilavi Mamayo. Mr. Speaker, I went through 668 pages of the estimates, and I saw a national budget of $1.5 billion. And when I saw that astronomical figure, let me wear $1.5 billion ko budget pays setli pour l'année sala. A lot of things crossed my mind. Is that finally a time, Mr. Speaker, unlike the year before, when the people of Denry North will get their fair share of the national pie? I also ask myself, Mr. Speaker, given the quantum over which we debated last year, are we going to see a more prudent management of the finances of this country? Mr. Speaker, I listened as the Prime Minister presented the estimates, and from his pronouncements, one would have gotten the impression that everything is fine in this country. And based on his pronouncements, one would have gotten the impression that in the history of this country, notwithstanding we had a few prime ministers before him, none had exercised more fiscal prudence than he has done in his 2 or 3 years at the helm. The figures he quoted, or what he chose to highlight, were very favorable according to him. And that as a result, St. Lucians ought to be happy. People ought not to be griping. People ought not to have any problems because the Prime Minister has come to the Parliament and presented a very glowing image of the economy of the country. And he was followed by some of his colleagues, Mr. Speaker, who echoed the sentiments that things are nice, the economy is doing well. The figures reflect a cadre of men and women who manage the country better than anybody else can. And so I had to ask myself, if the figures are so favorable, if your surplus figures are so nice and so good, why, Mr. Speaker, did I not see the reinstatement of the distress fund? Why, Mr. Speaker? Why, Mr. Speaker, I cannot see provisions here for a more functionable healthcare system? Why is it that the nurses have to call you on the side as an opposition MP to complain about the conditions under which they work? Why is it that the nurse whom I give a ride from an inner community in my constituency to the main road to catch a bus has to open her bag to show me the soap that she has to take to the hospital so that she can wash her hands after she's attended to a patient? And if these things, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister has said, that are supposed to portray St. Lucia and the economy in such a favorable light, why is it that we cannot address those basic issues? Basic issues. But this is a Prime Minister and a government that is preoccupied with the vision of grandeur. And as we speak, and there's nothing that peeves me more as somebody who's supposed to represent the interest of the marginalized and the people of Denry North than to drive to Viewfort as we speak and to see a horse racing track under construction at a time when we cannot attend to basic facilities and infrastructure in the different communities. That can never be right. And Mr. Speaker, nobody in it, none of the 17, can eyeball me or anybody of substance and tell me objectively that they agree with that kind of initiative. That is wrong. And we have to denounce that, every single one of us. And I understand that there are times you're going to be part of a team where when you're part of a team, Mr. Speaker, some of the decisions will be taken that you do not want to speak out against publicly. But we have to frown on those things. The actual revenue in a number of areas surpassed the projected amounts. That is what we were told. And as that happens, Mr. Speaker, in the constituency of Denry North, 2 years, 3 years, we have a health center that has been dysfunctional and out of commission. I cannot, Mr. Speaker, come in this parliament and let the eyes have it and sit passively in my chair and not raise those concerns. That is wrong. And I know that some of you on this side know that it is wrong. But for convenience, you will sit there and the eyes will have it. But I will tell you this, there's a life after politics, and some of you, in your older years, you will have to reflect on some of the decisions that you are part of. That can never be right, Mr. Speaker. And as he spoke, the Prime Minister spoke, Mr. Speaker, and he attempted to convince the House. After some of the pronouncements, he would turn to his colleagues to eyeball them in search of confidence and inspiration to continue saying more. Mr. Speaker, the roads are in a deplorable condition. Public servants are agitated. Farmers are demoralized. And then we speak about an economy that is doing so well. We have massive savings. We were happy to boast about the sinking fund or the reserves being at $21 million, Mr. Speaker. Yes, but if the savings are so good and the conditions are so favorable, I'm asking that this be reflected in the lives of the everyday people whom I represent in this chamber. It cannot be for the figures to be good on the books and that is not reflected in the daily struggles of the people whom I represent in this parliament. That cannot be right, Mr. Speaker. And as long as I have the life, the energy, and the will to come through the walls of this chamber, I will continue to speak out against those things. A government for family, friends, and undeserving foreigners. You heard the pronouncements yesterday from my colleague from Castries South. You also heard from the member for Castries East. And all how you try to be objective, Mr. Speaker. And sometimes you are inclined, because it is in your nature, to give the government the benefit of the doubt. Give them the benefit of the doubt. It boils down to the same thing, Mr. Speaker. Foreigners, friends, and family. It cannot be right for foreigners, friends, and family when the farmers of Denrinoff, as I said, continue to be demoralized. Mr. Speaker, I will move to the estimates and move quickly to head 41 on page 567. Denri Water Supply Redevelopment, $14,192,111. Mr. Speaker, from my understanding of it, that amount had already gotten parliamentary approval at a previous sitting. So it's just reflected in the national budget. I want to place on record that the amount that the CDB is making or has made available for phase 2 of the Denrinoff Water Redevelopment Project, that amount had already been secured by the St. Lucia Labour Party government. And we got a commitment from the Caribbean Development Bank in May of 2016. That was before the general elections, that the CDB, yes, they got in touch with us to tell us that the monies for phase 2 had been approved at the CDB board meeting. And I have said before that in a letter to his line permanent secretary, the general manager of WASCO wrote to John Calix to, as part of his responsibilities to apprise him of the project, told him, yes, the CDB had approved the loan in May of 2016. In May of 2016, it was the St. Lucia Labour Party that was in government. And in much the same way, it was the St. Lucia Labour Party government that secured the $5 million US for phase 1 of that project. So there's nothing new, nothing novel, nothing that is earth-shattering that this new administration has done with respect to that particular project. But I will hasten to add, Mr. Speaker, that I am very grateful, as I've said before, that the project was not stopped. The project was not stopped. Because the water problem in that constituency is one that has been in existence for a very, very long time, spanning decades. Gouvernement ni un budget là l'année ça là $14 millions pour ranger les affaires d'eau en Denrinoff. Et je dis, Mr. Speaker, même si nous avons l'argent ça là en l'année 2019, 2019, ça c'est l'argent gouvernement Léba déjà mandé CDB avant l'élection en 2016, 2016. Et CDB dit nous, oui, vous avez fait l'argent ça available. You also dit, à mon pour dire ici à bon matin, la première phase projet qu'on nous a fait water treatment plant à Tamazo, nous fait et puis l'argent Mexico, gouvernement Mexico, by gouvernement Saint-Lucie, qu'on en cadeau. Mais ça pas été assez pour faire whole projet, pour bailler toute vallée à Glo, et c'est pour raison ça, gouvernement Léba, c'est aller CDB pour demander pour l'on. Les gouvernements venus, ils ont debout ça pour un petit moment, avec le ministre agricole qui a une responsabilité pour Glo, il dit dans la cérémonie à Valia that yo tenu pour review et c'est pour ça yo te double projet. Mais le gouvernement ça c'est pas le gouvernement qui te mis des pièces loan application before the Caribbean Development Bank. So Mr. Speaker, phase 1 having been completed, the people of Grand Riviere are enjoying a clean water supply. And as recent as last month, the water was tested and it was revealed that the quality surpasses that of any other treatment plant in the entire country. So the people of Grand Riviere, the people of Richford, the people of Grand Ravine are getting water from the Tamazo treatment plant as part of phase 1. Phase 2 has started, and the people of Denny Riviere, in particular Austin Hill and Babawa, Belmont, they too will be benefiting from phase 2, as will the people of Gadet, Larissus, Lapel, Olion, and Despin. Ek mwen sav pou komen l'année, Mr. Speaker, moun teni pou leve douvan jou. Ek si l'année 4 moun an kay la, 3 ni pou ay dormi, ek yon ni pou reste la nuit pou ten leg lo akay vini. Because when the taps at most of the homes are closed, the pressure builds up in the line, and some of the areas that are deprived during the day, they get a trickle in the night, and people have to stay up in the wee hours. They had to stay up to be able, Mr. Speaker, to get a couple containers filled at their homes. This will be no more when phase 2 is completed. And I want to thank the people of Denrinoff for the patience that they've been able to exercise over the years before that intervention was made. Mr. Speaker, but as we speak, the problem is still very acute in some communities. I got a call only yesterday morning from a young lady who had called the day before, lamenting the situation in their little pocket of Olio. And she was telling me how they had gone for about 2 or 3 weeks without water. I immediately put a call through to the management of Wasco, and one of the technical people were able to answer and say to me that the pressure was just low, and that is why that particular section of Olio called Larry there, they would not get in water. People like Madna, Monique, Brizo, and them are having a serious problem getting water. But I will tell you one thing, Mr. Speaker. I must commend the management of Wasco. There's been an attempt on the part of the management of Wasco to engage the Office of the Parliamentary Rep and community-based organization in terms of information sharing where that particular project is concerned. But I'm happy, Mr. Speaker, that at least something is being done. Too many incidents or cases of kidney disease in Denrinoff. The rate of cancer in Denrinoff is one of the highest in the country. I see too many of my constituents on the line waiting to be dialyzed, waiting for dialysis. And the health professionals are beginning to tell us that it is very possible that the high incidence of cancer and renal failure might well be attributed to the quality of water or the poor quality of the water that they've been consuming over the years. So maybe, Mr. Speaker, just maybe, our generation has already been contaminated, and this is a project, the benefit of which the younger ones will enjoy. Mr. Speaker, with respect to the water project in Denrinoff, as I aligned it to Head 41 on page 567 of the budget, I want to thank once again, on behalf of the people of Denrinoff, the government of Mexico through their embassy in St. Lucia. And I know he's no longer here as the ambassador, but special mention must be made of Ambassador Moreno, who worked very diligently to ensure that the resources for phase 1 were made available to bring clean drinking water to the people of Denrinoff. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the personnel of UNOPS, United Nations Office of Project Services. They played a critical role in delivering phase 1, and for that we are extremely grateful. I want to thank CIE and the Renault Group for their role in that particular project. I want to thank Vinci Construction, based out of France, Mr. Speaker, the lead company in executing the civil works for the Denrinoff Water Redevelopment Project. Mr. Speaker, I must thank my people of Denrinoff for their patience, as I said, because it has been a long and difficult road for them where water resources is concerned. So, my Bible pièce on Vinicia, Mr. Speaker. Ekfeis gade, akodi projet Glo Denrinoff, c'est un projet gouvernement libre. Ek la regardez Facebook page Prime Minister Yonde Jou qui passe, il ka mouche gouvernement Flambeau, sorry, par des personnes quoi, Project Glow, Denry North, c'est projet gouvernement Flambeau. Ça c'est un projet qui a commencé par le gouvernement Léba et que nous faisons phase 1, mais provision pour phase 1 et puis phase 2. But Mr. Speaker, I saw on the Prime Minister's Facebook page where the Prime Minister was taking credit for the delivery of water in Denry North. This is a government that has nothing to show after 3 years in government. You have presided over 3 budgets. And after 3 years, you have nothing of substance to show. You have presided over 3 wasted years. And I've come to this parliament, and the sittings have been regular enough for you to come here and lay down your accomplishments and your achievements. You have nothing to show after presiding over 3 budgets and 3 wasted years. You have wasted resources. That is what you've done. And the member of Castries South told you yesterday, if you had 60-odd million in revenue from CIP or thereabouts, one entity brought about 40 million out of that. 54. And then you had to pay them because you mess up project et que presque toute la radio mène vie. Et que vous voulez venir dire nous fait bien l'année savings, qui ça on est pour moucher? What have you done? Seul bagay gouvernement Flambeau ça dit yo ja fait qui neuf en pays ça depuis yo entré. C'est commencer un track ko yo kay mener cheval Jean yo. Pas cheval yo. Pas cheval Jean vieux fort. Et moi même pour Mikou, ka oui. Moi je suis content si la kay cheval sort Mikou, te kay en l'air. Mais c'est cheval Jean qui sort de notre pays. That is all you have to show. I will be the first to acknowledge your accomplishment and say, yes, you've done this, you've done that. Expert, you have done nothing in 3 years. You have nothing to show. Nothing to show. Mr. Speaker, I move to head 44, or I stay on head 44, agriculture. And I see in the budget a provision of $3.9 million, almost $4 million for the banana productivity improvement project this year. Je dis encore ici, je dis encore, Mr. Speaker, pièce démarche, pièce gouvernement cette ici, qui les bat ou qui flabo point, pour aider femmes africaines, ça a toujours joué un support membre parlement pour Denry North. Because je comprends contribution FIG j'ai fait pour le développement pays cette ici. I understand the contribution that the banana industry would have made to the development of our country. I remember the days of green gold. But Mr. Speaker, as the industry transitioned over time, there was displacement for a lot of farmers. World Trade Organization rules kicked in. We lost preferential treatment. Farmers pas de avant fig blanc bité que de avant avant. Et ça a affecté industry fig tout bonnement. Mr. Speaker, in 1990, en 1990, 1990, cette licite a produit passé 100,000 tons fig. Et nous avons joint plus que 187 million dollars in revenue. In 1991, nous avons produit just about 100,000 tons. Et nous avons joint 146 million dollars. Et quand c'était ça, c'est fig qui a mené le pays cette ici. Mais comme nous, bagay changer les market fig là. Farmers ils ont des difficultés pour vendre because les conditions les market là bâti même. Et tourism took over as the mainstay of our economy. But Mr. Speaker, pas pis yon des farmers tapé koyo displaced qu'on nous a dit en anglais. Dat la tourism là pas ça taper dépenser en ces communautés fig là. Les figues qui amènent là, toute cette lycée qui a bénéficié de ça. Et que je dis avec moi, je dis, et si je reste 20 années comme je reste en caille concite, je dis pour 20 années. La figue qui fait Rodney Bay. La figue qui fait Castries Waterfront. La figue qui fait Roseau Dam. La figue qui a payé docteur, teacher, nurse et puis tout le monde. Et, Mr. Speaker, piste figue pas ça été avant. Les gouvernements les bas essayaient, and we are tempted to get the tourism dollars spent in those banana communities by way of social programs. They stopped the programs and instead of understanding the plight of the ordinary St. Lucian, the Prime Minister himself chose to refer to them as mendicants. As mendicants. How can that be right, Mr. Speaker? And of course, there will be fundamental differences in policy. There are days we will come here, Mr. Speaker, and all of us will agree on some issues. And there are days when we will be poles apart on some other issues. But you know what? Common thread that is supposed to influence our disposition in this House? We ought to be objective. And first and foremost, we must remember at all times that we should be working in the interest of the people of St. Lucia. So that if tourism today is the mainstay of the economy, and a community like Denrinoff does not benefit directly from the tourism dollar, the social programs that the tourism dollar is supposed to fund cannot be stopped in a community, and then you tell me that if people have certain needs that must be met, as will be the case in any country where you have a stratification of the populace, to choose to refer to those who may not necessarily be able to fend for themselves as mendicants. How can that be right, Mr. Speaker? And I don't know how educated men and women can just sit and what some members on the other side do not understand. Your silence is not enough. It makes you equally culpable to some of the decisions that are taken by a select few, at least 2 or 3 on the other side. Once you sit there, you are going to be part of it, and you will be judged in much the same way that the front runners will be judged. Mr. Speaker, Tropical Storm Kirk came and it decimated the banana crop in St. Lucia. Today, you still have farmers coming to my office every day because they're not able to get insurance compensation for the crop. And these are people who have stayed the course. Notwithstanding all the difficulties that farmers have faced, they have stayed the course. Silina ka still kite bel monte ka le figli tous les jours ay travail wed pour l'argent. Soslin ka fait même bail là. René, Roman, Auguste, Citronel, Vanos, Jeanne, Laurent, Pauli, Bailey et puis Lucia, Lincoln Boudou, toutes ces moun sa la ka kite kayo et puis yo ka aller en les femmes figure to earn an honest living. Notwithstanding the challenges of the industry, we know their challenges, but they continue to toil. And once they go into toil, and even if the banana revenue is not substantial today in comparison to what it used to be, Mr. Speaker, I will always stand behind these farmers to ensure that they get what is rightly theirs. So I'm calling on the Minister for Agriculture, and by extension the government, to please intervene, because you have a custodial responsibility to those farmers and their interests. Uni responsabilité pour ces farmers là. Pour work qui say Win Crop or whichever insurance company that they had entered into an agreement with. The Prime Minister is a farmer, he has an FAR. Well, even him too, Mr. Speaker, we can represent in that discourse. But the government needs to make representation on behalf of those farmers. It can never be right for you to go about your merry way. And I sat in cabinet too, and I know almost every Monday in cabinet, the memos that come for concession, and we are quick to give concessions, especially this government that is in office today, to foreigners. And all the farmers are asking for is a little help. Somebody to show that, look, we have your best interests at heart. So I'm hoping that when the Minister for Agriculture, or at least the Prime Minister in his rebuttal, can take the floor, Mr. Speaker, they can at least provide some soulagement. Et dit ces farmers qui pourraient payer from insurance, that you can joindre l'argent tout de suite au gouvernement qui mette des marches en place pour voir qui compagnie insurance là qui dit en bail. They do not have the luxury of people in big business, but as I said, they leave their homes in the wee hours. They spend long days on those farms, and you know what continues to motivate them, or what keeps them going? Because theirs is an ideal that is predicated on honesty and hard work. And I will never see them as mendicants, as some persons choose to refer to them. So, Mr. Speaker, the $3.9 million allocated in the budget on the Head 41 for the Banana Productivity Improvement Project is something that I support. And I'm just hoping, Mr. Speaker, that it can impact the constituency of Denrinoff in particular, and by extension, banana farmers all over the country. Mr. Speaker, permit me to move on to Head 53. I paid very close attention to pages 586 and 587. Head 53, Health and Wellness. Mr. Speaker, I went through the 2 pages in the daytime. I chose to do the same on a particular evening. I also attempted to get clarification from the member for Beaufort North, although I know he had absolutely no input in the preparation of that particular document. What was I looking for? I was looking for the reinstatement of the amount that the United Workers' Party government found in the budget when it came in for the Larry Seuss Health Center. And it is not there. Et ça c'est troisième année, gouvernement flambant en power. Là, ils venu en office in 2016. Ils joignent un budget là. Through a grand contribution, ROCT, Republic of China, Taiwan, an amount for the reinstatement of the Larry Seuss Health Center that was destroyed by fire. Yo tiye. Yo tiye. E ka vinisia. E ka di nou gouvernement ka fe bien. We have savings. We have surplus. The reserves are at their best. E kou pa sa mette $200,000 pour sa mette l'argent vieux pour manger Health Center Larry Seuss. And it pains me, not just as a parliamentary rep, but as a resident of the community, when I can see elderly people like Miss Eldry and Table have to walk from Richmond to their homes or take a bus. You know why? Because the services that were usually available to them at Larry Seuss, they have to go all the way to Richmond to source that. And I've made the point here before that the doctors and the health professionals at Richmond are overwhelmed. Research has shown that a district medical officer, where best practice is concerned, will see 15 to 20 people. Mr. Speaker, by 7:30, you have at least 60 to 70 people at the Richmond Health Center lining up to see a doctor. And when the crowd builds up, doctors from all the parts of the country have to be deployed to help with the congestion. And we're doing that at a time when the reserves are the best. We're doing that at a time when the savings have been at their best. We're doing that at a time when the economy is supposed to be at its best. We're doing that at a time when we're supposed to have the best, quote-unquote, Prime Minister St. Lucia has ever seen. Mr. Speaker, how can that be right? How can that be right? And I challenge anybody on the side, on principle, not politics, principle, to stand up and tell me, given what is happening today and the figures that were presented by the Prime Minister, that it is right for the people of Denrinoff to continue to live in that constituency without the Larry Seuss Health Center being reinstated. That can never be right, and none of you can muster the moral courage to stand up and tell me that this is right. You will play politics, of course you will, as you've always done. But I said to you, there are times when the lines have to be drawn. There are times for politics, and there are times when we have to act as the honorable men and women we're supposed to be, and call a spade and say when wrong is wrong. It is wrong for there to be a budget of $1.5 billion in St. Lucia and for the Larry Seuss Health Center not to be reinstated in the budget. That can never be right. And when it was happening in Choiseul, La Clery, Patience, Forestier, or Ogara, that would still be wrong. So I'm asking, Mr. Speaker, that the Prime Minister will, in his quiet moments, reflect on this. And please make an allocation available so that the health center. Il wrong pour Jean Denrinoff pour qu'à vivre sans health center Larry Seuss taper manger. Et que d'où les gouvernements flambeau venir power, Mr. Speaker, l'argent est en budget là. C'est pas là pour acheter, il est là, retiré. Et qu'on venir ici et dit moi budget c'est ici pour l'année ça. C'est 1,5 billion, pas million, billion dollars. Et que l'argent ça, ou pas ça un petit money pour s'arranger un health center by Jean Larry Seuss et Denrinoff. Et qu'on dit moi moun ni pour venir ici et mettre des défenses contre bail comme ça et que l'autre c'est un bon ministre ou c'est un bon politicien. That's not right, Mr. Speaker. And the absence of the provision of health care to the people of Denrinoff is something that I am particularly concerned about. Mr. Speaker, I move to head 43, one of my favorite agencies in the government, an agency which has seen a name change It has been presided over by very colorful characters. Today we know it as the Department of Infrastructure, Ports and Energy, Head 43. Larissus Dennery Road diversion, Mr. Speaker. Larissus Dennery Road diversion, Mr. Speaker. $2.15 million. Or to be exact, $2,151,909. The Larissus Dennery road diversion that is being spoken about in the budget is what the average person in Dennery North will know as the Viebanan Bridge situation. That particular bridge, which is north of the Larissus playing field, is out of commission as we speak. Quite rightly so, the Ministry of Infrastructure has blocked the access to that bridge on both sides, the Despin side and the Larissus side. And the only road to Oleon as we speak is the Larissus road, which we thankfully paved on the eve of the elections of 2016. Mr. Speaker, this particular situation produces a major inconvenience for the people of Olio, Despin, and the valley generally. It's a very critical piece of road, and I'm hoping that at the soonest that this particular bridge will be...
Mr. Speaker, on a point of clarification, I believe the honourable member for Dennery North is probably misinterpreting what is in the estimates, which refers to the Larissus Vieux-Fort road diversion. Dennery, on what line item is it?
It's 2.15 million. It's in your capital. Look at your capital breakdown.
Page 571. Member for Dennery North, you may continue in the meantime.
Mr. Speaker, you'll be giving me my time back, right? Very well. So, member, you are okay with this? That's correct, right? What I cited is correct.
228. Check page 228.
Oh, yes. Yes, Mr. Speaker. So I was saying that amount of 2.15 million that is in the budget as Larissus Dennery road diversion is what the people of the valley will know as the Viebanan Bridge situation. L'année $2 million qui est en budget là pour Viebanan et puis area ça là, Mr. Speaker. Et puis il dit that pour le moment chimé qu'on a sorti la ressource pour elle c'est monter au Lyon, moun pas à servir chimé ça encore because Ministry of Infrastructure et moi d'accord avec vous pour fermer chimé because situation là c'est qui critique et c'est une situation qui pas bon pour moun qui a servi là. Et nous pas vle un jour que la un accident et puis moun kay perd la vie. Mais ce qui est important, Mr. Speaker, pour nous note is that you have goods vehicles servicing shops in Oleon, goods vehicles servicing shops in Despin, and the Larissus concrete road, which services Oleon now, is beginning to experience a level of congestion that it is not used to. The road is a bit narrow, Mr. Speaker, and it is a challenge and a difficulty for a certain mix of vehicles to negotiate that road. And the situation is further exacerbated when you have mass crowd activities at Larissus, like football or even funerals. What the police used to do, they used to block off the entrance to Larissus at the Lapel Junction and allow vehicles to go up to Larissus and come down through Despin. But that cannot be done now because, as I said, the bridge in Viebanan is out of commission. Mr. Speaker, I did tell you that it was one of my favorite departments of government on the Head 43. I see what most of us who have interacted with the Ministry of Infrastructure would call recon and rehab. $11 million, or to be exact, $11,172,998. Mr. Speaker, with $11 million for recon and rehab, I am hoping that the Lapel Road will get some attention. Mr. Speaker, je crois que depuis $11 millions pour manger chimé pour l'année ça là, ces gens Lapel là qui joignent un petit soulagement et puis situation yo. Chimé Lapel là c'est chimère qui en plus vieille condition en rôle pays cette lycée. Chimère ça a été servi par monde qui a resté l'appel. Là les monde qui a vendu marchandises qui a entré l'appel à vendre. C'est juste ça, ils pas venir parce que le chimère pas bon. Vendre qui a entré là vendre pain car là en déchet because yo pas quoi là yo aller là et puis en modoka yo ka servir on là yo aller ça yo ka do yo ka perdre en chaitan because chimère pas bon. On est en chai monde qui ni femmes en bas là en l'appel. Ambulance là, c'est Jean ambulance là j'ai dit moi c'est pour nous faire en gamme. Et moi a dit yo that moi essayer parler et puis ministre qui a responsabilité pour infrastructure et garder si Mr. Speaker nous avons un soulagement pour chimer l'appel. Je l'appelle qu'on Jean toute l'autre place dans cette liste capé $1 et puis déchelé dans chaque gallon gaz si vous achetez. Quesh café les aller à gas station dans Richmond et bien n'importe quoi les acheter gaz. Anne café. Tu as gaz le gaz. Caillou, Icon, Master White et puis Bailey qui a tapé affecté. Dave là il sorti en ville et fini pour aller l'appel il dit pour marcher les machines à médiateur comme Bruce. Icon qui avait même bail là tout. They all deserve, Mr. Speaker, to see their $1.50 at work in their immediate community. Mr. Speaker, toi frère, ou pas mal banane, oubliez ça autre banane. Mr. Speaker, the Trois-Frères Road in my constituency is in a deplorable condition. Yes, it is a farm access road, but again, you see the resilience of the people of Denry North continues to shine. They've not abandoned their farms. They still go up and they meet me and they say to me, "Kade ça vous a fait puis chimé ba nous? Kade ça vous a fait ministry même si you pas pavely but guate ba nous." And when I approached the minister recently, he told me the ministry's grader was destroyed a couple months ago. But I'm hoping that something will give. I have an elderly gentleman in my constituency. He's in his 80s. We call him Cools. And he also goes by the name Put It In It. A name for which I have sought an explanation but I have not been able to get, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he was going to his garden one day. And because of the condition of the road, he slipped and he was able to break one of his arms. And I'm saying that very, very seriously. And he said to me that si je mets en partie condition ça là, ça va dégager moi aujourd'hui. And I tried to convince him that we will do something one way or the other. I'm not asking for Baba Green on the Trois-Frères Road, but at least a heavy equipment to just go there and scrape it for the farmers who continue to work in Upper Grand Ravine. The Cardi Belmont Road is in a deplorable condition. I would be grateful for any assistance that can be given to that particular road. The Austin Road, Austin Hill to Mardi Gras Road, that too, Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Infrastructure in 2015, when we were in government, did some work, but it was not completed. As parliamentary rep, I attempted to complete that road through the CDP. When the United Workers' Party assumed office, left Flambeau power en 2016, moun te jani contract yo en leme yo pour faire chimé Austin Hill. Ça que vous pour faire là. En bas ça nous a créé CDP, Constituency Development Program. C'est que Taïwan ka bail gouvernement cette ici, gouvernement Taïwan ka bail gouvernement cette ici là pour faire projet. C'est pas un cas qu'on nous dit nous de faire ça, Mr. Speaker. Nous dit nous de faire. Nous menons ingénieurs qui misent et qui ban nous pour ya. Nous couper projet là en common shop. Nous bail mon contract. Yo te dit contract yo leme yo. Et que les gouvernements changé, Mr. Speaker. Yo tout bout projet a. Yo pas on a contract c'est moun nan. Et qu'on y a union de moun sous ces flambeaux koyoye. Ka vini mettre des pression en l'air moi.
Honorable member.
Mr. Speaker, I withdraw. Mr. Speaker, I sincerely withdraw, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, they come to me, surrogates of their party, and they want to apply pressure on me and ask me, what is it that you're doing? Qui sa ou ka fe bot chime Austin Hill? Le yo vini, and the party yo vini au gouvernement, yo hen moun te jani contract pour faire chime an. La rente hala, yo doubout li, et qu'on dit, jou ka vin mande mwen. Qui ça moi qui a fait bot chimé mais moi still venir ici avec demander Mr. Speaker gouvernement pour ban moi assistance sur la Jean Austin Hill là pour prendre chimé en métro pour mettre Scott qui t'a payé manger pour point plus haut que bébé pour mener monter Madigua bon Aiden nous gagnons manger et que là on tout mérite Mr. Speaker c'est pour l'état chimie dit dans là you know it very well Mr. Speaker you've been there I've seen you there Mr. Speaker and Mr. Speaker we leave that alone Mr. Speaker these roads I don't do that these roads are in a deplorable condition. Mr. Speaker is probably the only person who has seen these roads. And maybe the member for Barbono too would know about that road. No. The member for Barbono would know the road very well. Because he worked in the constituency. And the member for Denver South knows the road too. Leave that. Mr. Speaker, the Louvet Buffalo Road needs assistance. As well. I will have to call for the protection of the chair.
Yes, and I'll give it to you right now. Honorable members, allow the member to proceed. Continue, sir.
The former Prime Minister is interfering with my presentation. Mr. Speaker, the Louvet Buffalo Road is also in need of assistance. And that's still near Shaija Louvet. At that time, on the bar, some of the hardest working people you'll find anywhere in this country are from Oleon. You can move to the Casavio, depuis 4 ou 5 heures matin, et faire ça une faire. And then they come back, Mr. Speaker, and you can go at it, you can faire farine, et faire Casav. Et you can après taxi ou ça. You can mettre à terre, à de yo, depuis un junction de glo. You can marcher avec pan yo, on let it yo. You can arriver toute road nibi. You can have une mode contract. You can have une mode handout. Et je jamais qui yo mendicants. Ça me gamode. C'est pour just buy. Mais on dit load matériaux en les chimères et puis on fait chimère de manière. Parce qu'il pas en l'enterrer c'est comme ça. Pour qu'à planter cassave autant loin et pour qu'après sacement yok là et porter en la tête dans distance co machine si vous êtes capable. Okay, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Mondesi Road is also in a bad state. And I know that the Matter family that lives way to the top, they've been attempting. What's happening? They've been at. Who's Adashi? Sarah?
Honorable member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was making reference to the Mondesi Road in Upper Denia Riviera, and I was also making the point that the Matter family that lives way to the top have been attempting to develop their place up there into a heritage tourism site. But they've been affected badly by the condition of that particular road. And I'm hoping that, Mr. Speaker, when the Ministry or the Department of Infrastructure can revise their work program in Zone 3, they can find some resources to make that road a little more accessible to the people who use it in Mondesi, Upper Denia Riviera. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Infrastructure has embarked on a massive island-wide guardrails program, if I should call it that. And I'm happy to see that particular project, Mr. Speaker, being implemented. And I've seen guardrails being installed in communities all over the country. But today I need to make a pitch for the people of Grand Ravine. Je veux demander pour la communauté Grand Ravine. L'année encore, là où qui était Grand Ravine, car we form, Mr. Speaker. Just pour une femme, Hayes, en l'échelle Grand Ravine. Là. Kona là, c'est une qui, à cette manière, ça nous a dit anglais, chap, ok, et qui whiskab. Après, pour dire, mais toi, mon j'appelle la vie là, encore dans ça. Et là, toujours un accident. So, je vais prendre l'occasion pour demander au ministre de l'Infrastructure pour garder si ça mettait un guardrail là, pour nous, s'il vous plaît. Parce que nous ne pouvons pas en l'autre situation pour la dernière accident, une machine qui est sortie de la chimère et puis les gens qui sont morts encore. Et comme ça, je vais dire about Ministry of Infrastructure. Ou pas demander en chaïbaï, mais délai on est espoir d'être l'homme de ou qu'à y joindre. So c'est la première fois que je demande et que je crois, Mr. Speaker, that je vais joindre deliverance en laisser par là, je demande. L'année à 2016, je vais demander rien, Mr. Speaker, parce que moi je sais que je vais joindre. So je même pas demander. Et moi je sais que je vais demander. Et c'est pour ça que je demande pour Chimay-Modesi, Austin Hill, Cardi Belmont Road, Buffalo, because myself, l'année Municia, Kini, yo connaît manière bail la marché, Mr. Speaker, yo jate avec your opposition et yo un gouvernement. And I remain eternally optimistic that something will give. Mr. Speaker, the Constituency Development Program in the Ministry of Economic Development, $10.6 million.
Honorable Member, you have 15 minutes in which to
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Department of Economic Development, Transport and Civil Aviation. The line item there, Constituency Development Program, $10.6 million. The CDP, Mr. Speaker, or Constituency Development Program, is a fancy term that we as parliamentarians and some technical people in the different ministries use. But for the average man, it is la Taiwanese gabay pour faire petit projet en community. Mr. Speaker, gouvernement sa agent a pouvoir pour 3 années, 3 years. Et me beaucoup pièce projet Taiwanese. Well, si il a fait un sigoué, un Denry North. Mais moi ça d'où? Là, nous tenons 3 années au gouvernement. After our 3rd anniversary in government, there are a number of CDP projects that have already been executed in Denry North. I know what my people come and they say to me, Mr. Speaker, those who understand the politics on the ground, they come to me and they say, il y a 3 années, le gouvernement a posé à péter un sac ciment en Denry North. Je vais vous gouvernement invitation pour commencer à péter sac ciment en Denry North, s'il vous plaît. Let us get some of those projects, the CDP projects, going. I don't expect to be consulted, but let us give to the people of Denry North what they rightfully deserve. I have said it before. In a previous life of this country, they were the ones, Mr. Speaker, who went to the farms at 5 in the morning to deflower the bananas, to harvest the bananas, and ensure that in excess of $100 million by way of annual revenue was coming to the country. Some of them don't have the strength anymore. And what they're asking for is a little health center to be fixed, a little footpath, a little retaining wall, a little drain. And you're telling me, because the majority voted for the St. Lucia Labour Party in the elections of 2016, they ought to be deprived? Mr. Speaker, we on this side do not support that. The majority on the other side, and I'm saying that sincerely, do not support that. But it is politically expedient to come here and let the eyes have it. But in your quiet moments, you need to reflect on some of those things. Let there be a more equitable distribution of the state resources. Of course, the politics must run. I know that, I understand that. But I believe the manner in which opposition parliamentarians have been treated is wrong, and this is the worst that it has ever been in the history of this country. I know projects were done in some constituencies and they were not consulted, but they were engaged when they were in opposition. Projects were being executed in their constituencies through their office. They were given autonomy, Mr. Speaker. But today, and you must understand, St. Lucia is a very small society, you know. Things will come full circle. People will talk. And those who were the biggest beneficiaries, today, you should hear them, Mr. Speaker. You should hear about their behavior in the cabinet when some people who were on the campaign trail with them, supporting them, get a little project. How quickly they forget. But that's only for a time. Politics and governance is cyclical. It revolves. It will take forever, but it must come full circle. I do not believe in revenge. I'm not a vengeful person. But Mr. Speaker, to those on the other side who believe and who are quick, their retort is, you all were there, you all did it too. You have an opportunity. You were given an overwhelming mandate to right the wrongs. Perpetuating it cannot be the way forward. You promised to build a new St. Lucia. You promised when it was convenient that it will be all in. But you are all in. But you know what you're all in? You are all in favoring foreigners over St. Lucians. You are all in ensuring that family and friends are the main beneficiaries of this country. You are all in remaining silent on the non-reinstatement of the distress fund. Every year in St. Lucia, there is somebody who struggles to put 10 sheets of plywood together and call it a home. And you should never look down on them, you know, because of the amount of sweat it took to construct those 2x4 homes and the amount of pride that resides in there. And Mr. Speaker, sometimes to no fault of theirs, they are at work and they get a call, that distressing call, that the little plywood structure has gone up in flames and you cannot find $400,000 to reinstate a distress fund. You cannot find $400 million, $400 million, pour mettre dans un budget of 1.5 billion pour aider les gens qui ont bilé. Mais quand on a parlé l'année cette ici, je me dis, Mr. Speaker, c'est pour là pour vivre fort. Manière you have ça belle pour cheval venir pour. La pas rien qui a enlevé moi plus. En tout ça gouvernement ça a fait. Pelé moi aller vivre fort, oui moi aller là. Pour you better have to withdraw that. Mr. Speaker, them to see a horse racing track under construction. And 200 yards from the horse racing track, on y a l'hôpital, ko nos ni pour aller, et puis ça, you from Kayo pour laver les maillots. La bannière a still labor patients. And that is right. You know what I suspect is happening? There are men and women in this honorable house, and I say both genders, and I mean that sincerely, who have made names for themselves, but their legacy is under threat just by association and not publicly denouncing the things they know that are wrong, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it cannot be right for a horse racing track to be built in a country where a healthcare system is so dysfunctional. Mr. Speaker, I will move now to thank a lot of the people who make their contributions, those in the public domain and some behind the scenes, to life in Denrinoff. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the political leader of the Central Labour Party for the support that he has given to me in my stewardship of my constituency, as well as the executive of the Central Labour Party. The staff at the Denrinoff Parliamentary Office, I want to single out Esther, Damien, and Althea, as well as the many who come, Mr. Speaker, to volunteer their time and help discharge my responsibilities. I want to thank the executive of the Denrinoff, the executive of the Denrinoff Labour Party constituency group. I want to thank the principals of the various schools, as well as the administrators of the early childhood centers. I want to thank the Youth and Sports Council, the Football League. I want to thank the pastors and the priests of the different Christian denominations, Mr. Speaker. Pastor St. Four, Pastor Bray, Pastor Mafre, Father Raj, and Deacon Popo before him. I want to thank the Richmond Police under the command of ASP Alexander. I knew him to be a very productive and respected officer in the Immigration Department, or more specifically the Passport Office. But I notice he now operates from the Commander's office at the Dennery Police Station. But you would know, Mr. Speaker, that the officer in charge of the Dennery Police Station also provides oversight for Richmond. So I want to thank ASP Alexander, as well as Sergeant Gustav at the Richmond Police Station. Mr. Speaker, a budget of $1.5 billion can do a lot for St. Lucia. But I am not optimistic, given the record of this government, that we will get value for money at the end of the ensuing financial year. Wastage, Mr. Speaker, is one of the main characteristics of this particular administration. And Mr. Speaker, as I take my seat, I want to say to the people of Denrinoff who sent me to this chamber to represent their interest, that we are not easily broken, and attempts by the government to sideline me in community-based activities will not always work. But instead, it will fortify my stance. I will remain doggedly resolute in protecting the interests of those people who do not have a voice. I do not come here for praise. I'm not seeking popularity. I understand the community that I represent. I'm a product of that community. I've resided there all my life. And any time I stand on my feet in this parliament and I speak on behalf of the people of Denrinoff, Mr. Speaker, I am basically reflecting my own personal experiences. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for your indulgence. I want to thank colleagues on both sides for your indulgence and your cooperation, and I look forward to working with you for the betterment of the people of Denry North. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The man made a good presentation, I think. Yes, thank you, sir. You'll tell me after.
Minister for Commerce, Industry, Investment, Enterprise Development and Consumer Affairs, and member for Swazel, Saltibus.
Mr. Speaker, parliamentary colleagues, good morning. Mr. Speaker, it is always something that I do every morning, and that is to give thanks, because we live in uncertain times, and in recent times, Mr. Speaker, I have had to hear the bad news of friends, acquaintances passing very suddenly. So, Mr. Speaker, gratitude is a must. And I want to thank, Mr. Speaker, my family, friends, constituents for their continued love, the patience and understanding. I wish to also thank the staff and the other agency that I work with for their commitment to make St. Lucia the best place to work, play, and live. Mr. Speaker, my contribution this morning will be focused primarily on the ministry that I have responsibility for. And I will touch very, very briefly on my constituency. However, the bulk of my presentation on my constituency will be sometime next week when we debate the appropriation bill. But before I dive into the substantive portion of my ministry's contribution to the development of the country and the estimates of the revenue and expenditure for 2019-2020, I wish to underscore, with your permission, the significant role that the Ministry of Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs plays in enhancing the business environment and, by extension, improving the country's GDP. I have personally coined my ministry as the David among the Goliaths. And I say so, Mr. Speaker, because without the effort of what we do and represent, other ministries would be in vain. Commerce, Mr. Speaker, has its basis in entrepreneurship. And a working definition of entrepreneurship for today's purpose is a creative act that brings higher levels of satisfaction to people. It results in more order and finds ways to create greater value than existed before. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm certain you would agree, commerce would have been the first structure put in place by a civilized society. Mr. Speaker, the work done by the ministry, staff and agencies is phenomenal. And I therefore wish, in my presentation, to highlight accordingly. Mr. Speaker, under the Ministry of Commerce, International Trade, Investment, Enterprise Development, and Consumer Affairs fall 9 units, 4 of which are statutory standalone operations with their own board and mandate,
and which I will address separately. But I wish, Mr. Speaker, to turn your attention to page 203 of the budget estimates 2019-2020. And Mr. Speaker, you would notice the expenditure for my ministry, the budget for my ministry has an allocation of $8,368,400, which actually reflects a year-over-year reduction of almost $800,000. And as significant as this ministry is, you would note, Mr. Speaker, that it is one of the ministries with one of the smallest allocations, but we do work wonders in that ministry. I wish to turn your attention, Mr. Speaker, to Head 42, page 205, Division 031, Enterprise Development. Under Enterprise Development, we have two units. The SBDC, which is Small Business Development Unit, and SEDU, which I think is a more popular reference by the people who visit the ministry. SEDU, Mr. Speaker, their primary function is to assist startups and maturing businesses and help to transform ideas into lucrative goods and services. And a major aspect of the ministry's work is centered on promoting enterprise development in St. Lucia, and that is developing and executing policies, programs, and initiatives to stimulate enterprise development in a sustainable and efficient manner. And while each arm of the ministry contributes in some form or fashion to achieving this objective, Mr. Speaker, the Small Enterprise Development Unit and the Commerce and Industry Unit are primarily focused on devising and executing initiatives to propel the growth of the micro, small, and medium enterprise sector of St. Lucia. So the importance of enterprise development is, one, the MSMEs are primarily the backbone of our economy, and a strong backbone enables a healthier economy. Contributes significantly to job creation, our GDP, and creates a stable business environment. It enables the holistic growth and development of the economy. Government supports in this sector, Mr. Speaker, is to continue to support small businesses through technical assistance, support measures, and granting fiscal incentives to start or expand their business operation. And of course, Mr. Speaker, this is essential to business sustainability. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to highlight some of the achievements of the unit in fostering enterprise development in the 2018-2019 budget cycle. This center, Mr. Speaker, recorded significant growth in the number of aspiring and existing micro and small business owners seeking assistance to start a business or expand operations during the period under review. Approximately 1,000 entrepreneurs, Mr. Speaker, access our services during the period, the majority being in the services sector. Mr. Speaker, if you turn to 208 of the estimates of revenue and expenditure, you would see some stats which reflect 985 clients access our services, 800 business names registered, 71 companies were incorporated, 9 training programs hosted, and 243 entrepreneurs trained in various areas of business management. And Mr. Speaker, 5 micro and small businesses benefited from duty-free concessions amounting to almost $500,000 EC dollars. We also hosted several training programs, Mr. Speaker, and SEDU received training from the Savings Bank Foundation for International Cooperation for improving financial literacy through the micro business games training session that uses real-life business scenarios to teach entrepreneurs the impact of their businesses on business management. 57 persons have been trained to date, and an additional 48 will be trained before the end of this financial year. The unit also has an outreach business program, and Mr. Speaker, I wish to take this opportunity to thank the Vibe radio program Real Talk, that has been working with the ministry on a voluntary basis, Mr. Speaker, to sensitize the general public about the work of the ministry and its affiliate agencies and partners. And while it is a very young radio station, you know, I recognize that voluntary work that they're doing, Mr. Speaker, and I must applaud them for that reaching out to the ministry. And they have also come to us with another proposal that I know we are considering, and in due course, you know, we will speak about it. The department has also been doing several community and school programs. We have outreach programs providing training in entrepreneurship to community and school-based programs. Some of them include the Boys Training Center, creative program in the Masha community. You aware of that, Honorable? Okay. Social transformation in Monrepo, Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, and the Viewfort Post-Secondary School. There have been several success stories, Mr. Speaker. One of our clients, Easy Click Books, won the Chamber of Commerce Award for Innovation in 2018. We have also assisted 2 companies where they benefited from grant funding totaling 72,933 euros through the Caribbean Export Direct Assistance Grant Scheme, DAGS. And we're also very proud of one of our clients, Johannes Dujon, owner of Algas Organics, who received the 2019 Commonwealth Youth Award on March 13, 2019. And you would have heard the Prime Minister speak of him winning in the category Industry, Innovation and Infrastructure, and actually meeting the Sustainable Goal number 9, SDG 9. So some of the initiatives we intend to roll out in this new budget cycle, Mr. Speaker, is we are currently in discussions with the Postmaster General to launch an initiative to enable the ease of doing business. Therefore, micro and small enterprises would be able to benefit by a more efficient way in which they can distribute their products throughout the island. There is an MSME policy, and this year, Mr. Speaker, we are working diligently to have this policy ratified by June 2019. We also wish to expand the SBDC network, and SEDU anticipates that the St. Lucia Chamber of Commerce, which is a key stakeholder, will officially join this network in April 2019. The SBDC and the Chamber of Commerce have a long-standing partnership working relationship. For example, we work jointly with the Junior Achievements Program to develop the entrepreneurial spirit among the youth, and we provide mentorship, which provides mentorship. The St. Lucia Youth Business Travel Trust, the Plumbing and Promotion of Global Entrepreneurship Week, and Independence 20 Meets 20 Mentorship Program. The EU support working with the European Union to embark on initiatives to generate employment through enterprise development. This offer is approximate. We expect to be, about 1,000 clients to benefit from this offer. Also to train 245 micro and small business persons in bookkeeping and financial management. The Commercial and Industry Unit also provides support to enterprise, but to medium and large-scale enterprises. The unit works with firms to enable their entry or expansion on the local market through the implementation of fiscal incentive regime. I reference page 209 of the budget estimates, Mr. Speaker. 30 fiscal incentives granted to the private sector. Expected outcome, job creation. It is projected that our efforts in working with these firms in facilitating their entry or expansion onto the market over the past year will result in the creation of 500 to 1,000 new jobs in the short to medium term. Evidence of this is already seen in the area of business process outsourcing, BPO, where new firms such as Red Booth Inc. have recently entered the market while existing firms such as KM2 Solutions have invested heavily in expansion. I wish to pause for a minute, Mr. Speaker, to also speak on a remarkable development in the South, Vieux-Fort in particular, and I speak to the Ojo Labs, Mr. Speaker. As the Minister of Investment, I am extremely proud of the achievements to date of the Ojo Labs. And I have heard members opposite query, criticize the funds that have been expended to develop this particular enterprise. But Mr. Speaker, I wish to indicate to this Parliament that Invest St. Lucia did not invest in Ojo Labs. Invest St. Lucia spent $5 million EC dollars to rehabilitate one of our factory sheds that was lying dormant for 12 years, Mr. Speaker. 12 years. Mr. Speaker, I am extremely, extremely proud to indicate today that Ojo Labs, having its employee 300 employees. Phenomenal achievement, Mr. Speaker. And we expect by the end of this year to have an additional 200 staff. So making a figure of 500 employees at Ojo Labs. Mr. Speaker, and I'll play the politics for a minute, Honorable Minister. I'll play it. Because, Mr. Speaker, under a previous program by the opposition, a previous program where young people were selected to work in various organizations, including farms. No, listen, honorable member for Castries South. Listen, what we have to be very, very mindful of, Mr. Speaker, under the previous program, these people were handpicked. We have 300 employees working at Ojo Labs, and as Minister of Investment, you can ask my colleagues, I cannot make an intervention for one person from Choiseul. I cannot make an investment for one person from Choiseul. However, there is a process by which people apply to work at Invest St. Lucia. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to invite you, the member for Labrie, member for Vieux-Fort South and Vieux-Fort North, let's go to Ojo Labs. Let's go to Ojo Labs. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to make a document of the House. A document of the House, 300 smiling faces of the staff at Ojo Labs. I have no control. We have no control over the people who are employed at Ojo Labs. And you know what? They are skilled in an area that they can go out there internationally, Mr. Speaker, and obtain employment. Mr. Speaker, we are also very aware that within the free zone in Vieux-Fort, that's 280 to be precise. Yes. 20 stayed inside. Yes. Mr. Speaker, there are also 3 other factory sheds that have been lying for 10 years. 10 years. No, I want the member for Labrie to look very closely. You would see a few of your people in there. Look very closely. And the member for Vieux-Fort South is not there. I'm your neighbor, I know. I'm your neighbor, I know them.
Honorable member, always speak through the chair.
Yes. Mr. Speaker, we also have 3 other factory sheds within the free zone area that's in a deplorable condition, have been lying like this for the past 10 years. And we missed a wonderful opportunity. There was an investor, and I know we like to go online and do our research, called Red Venture Limited. And I'm sure you all would love that name. Red Venture Limited. Red Venture Limited, came to St. Lucia to invest in one of these factory sheds. However, when they noticed the condition of the factory sheds, they could not wait. And you know where they went to? We lost an opportunity to Jamaica. And so Invest St. Lucia is currently going to invest sums to retrofit these factory sheds. So, Mr. Speaker, I also want to highlight, Mr. Speaker, that the unit also facilitates product development and domestic market penetration. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, the member for Castries South, could you please ask them to give me the opportunity to continue my presentation? Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, we have since hosted the Taiwan Partnership Trade Show for 11 years. And in November last year, some 50 local companies were able to showcase new and upcoming products that are now available on the local market. The unit continues to train and invest in the area of capacity building and training for the private sector with various workshops and other interventions occurring throughout the year. And firms have since received support in the areas of accounting, proposal writing, market and product development. Initiatives to be pursued. Mr. Speaker, I am extremely pleased to report, I've made the statement in this House before, but I'm extremely pleased to report at our last Cabinet meeting, I presented to the Cabinet a memo which will address fiscal incentives to the services sector. Mr. Speaker, we've spoken about that time and time again, focusing on 4 priority sectors: professional services, creative industries, health and wellness, and ICT. I'm very pleased, Mr. Speaker, that our next Cabinet meeting, my colleagues will have the opportunity to debate the benefits of this particular memo, and in due course we'll be presenting to the people of St. Lucia the benefits that can be derived from this particular policy that will be rolled out. We are also developing a new private sector development strategy, Mr. Speaker, for St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, I wish to turn your attention to Head 42, page 212, Division 033, Investment Coordination Unit. Mr. Speaker, we cannot speak to private sector development without discussing the creation of an enabling environment to facilitate businesses by attracting domestic and foreign investment. This unit, Mr. Speaker, is therefore charged with monitoring the business environment, formulating and implementing policies aimed at improving the business environment, assessing the business facilitation environment to ensure compliance with legislation and regulations, and making recommendations to improve efficiency in the business environment. Some of the achievements, Mr. Speaker, in the last budget cycle was review of the fiscal incentive regime. And while, Mr. Speaker, I spoke to a memo that was submitted to Cabinet, there is a bigger picture with regards to the whole review of the fiscal incentive regime. And one of the things, Mr. Speaker, that we're looking at is to identify the priority services which has already been done, diversification and investment in other sectors. The regime will be performance-based, the new fiscal regime, with additional benefits in key areas such as environmental management and innovation. We have also, Mr. Speaker, and I would also wish to add that one of the complaints that we've been hearing, particularly from our manufacturing sector, is that they have all exhausted their 15-year tax holiday period. So, Mr. Speaker, my ministry has been given this serious thought as to how these manufacturing agencies, which are ours, the backbone of manufacturing in St. Lucia, can be assisted. I have made a presentation to the Cabinet where, Mr. Speaker, based on expansion and technological advancement, we would consider some of the requests for additional fiscal incentives. But a lot more of that will be coming in the months ahead, and you will definitely be aware of what we as a ministry are doing. This unit is also responsible for reviewing of the trade license regime, Mr. Speaker. And the trade license regime is to monitor and regulate the foreign trade investment activities in St. Lucia. The trade license regime, Mr. Speaker, is the only World Trade Organization compliant tool that enables government to regulate foreign direct investment. Trade licenses are necessary as they regulate in a manner that safeguard the public interest by ensuring that the trade or business is conducted in accordance with applicable rules, standards, and other requirements. As the world becomes more open, Mr. Speaker, the risk of unethical behavior by investors increase, exposing our country to a number of ills such as terrorism, money laundering, human trafficking, and blacklisting. It is therefore imperative that we review our systems, legislations, and operating framework to ensure that all safety nets and due diligence are in place to avoid or minimize such occurrences. As a result, there is an urgent need to improve the monitoring framework to ensure compliance and avoid such national shocks. This new regime will also provide critical data that will assist in investment-related decision-making for national development. We are also, Mr. Speaker, working assiduously on the development of an investment guide. Mr. Speaker, the investment guide is a subcomponent of the investment roadmap. It will provide potential investors with information on all the agencies that they need to interact with to register their business and comply with local laws and regulations. It will include all transaction costs, process time, and requirements. Currently, it is being finalized, Mr. Speaker, so I'm very certain in this financial year you will hear about it. Ease of doing business interventions, Mr. Speaker, we've heard a lot of talk about that, and we also are very aware that St. Lucia has declined from a position of 64 out of 190 in 2014 to 93 in 2019. I am on record and indicating, Mr. Speaker, that while we are working to improve that particular ranking, what is happening in the world, Mr. Speaker, is that a lot more societies are moving at a lot faster rate than us in implementation. Some of the indicators, just to indicate where we are not performing well, is 1, getting credit, resolving insolvency, registering property, protecting minority investors, and trading across borders. To date, Mr. Speaker, there has been some improvement in 1, in the getting electricity indicator. It has been reduced from 10 to 5 days. Extension of the land register is valid from 5 days to now 1 month. And Compete Caribbean Grant Fund, a project secured to promote the online service offered at the Inland Revenue Department and therefore enhance the paying of taxes indicator. We currently ranked at 73 in 2019. The objective is to bring in St. Lucia in line with the best practices in terms of a legal framework that promotes alternative dispute resolution. In 2019, St. Lucia ranked 75 out of 190 on enforcing contracts, and one of the main reasons, Mr. Speaker, is the time it takes to resolve a dispute. In St. Lucia, 645 days compared to the best practice of 164 days. We also wish, Mr. Speaker, to improve the legal framework for protecting minority interests in St. Lucia to positively impact the current performance indicator of 99. We also, Mr. Speaker, aggressively have recommenced work on advancing the work on the national single window. This will significantly improve the efficiency at our local ports. We have since completed an investment climate assessment survey, which the objective was to evaluate the investment business climate in St. Lucia, utilizing international best practice with a view to developing evidence-based policies and strategies to enhance the investment business climate in St. Lucia over the next 3 years. The report has been completed, Cabinet has endorsed it, and we will soon be having a stakeholder consultation to implement the policy recommendations. Mr. Speaker, I wish to move to the area of international trade very briefly. Mr. Speaker, just to highlight some of the achievements in that unit this year. The International Trade Unit of the Ministry is responsible for trade negotiations and advocacy, as well as coordinating the implementation of the various trade agreements. Mr. Speaker, if you move to allocation head 42, page 214, division 034, a budget of 623,877 towards international trade. St. Lucia, from the regional level, Mr. Speaker, St. Lucia has been engaged in an ongoing work program in collaboration with the OECS Commission aimed at implementing a harmonized legal and regulatory framework for goods and services as part of our ongoing efforts to implement the revised Treaty of Bastille. We are also, Mr. Speaker, are very, very proud to indicate that one of the most impactful developments this year was what we consider the promotion of industrial development. You know, we have a fledgling manufacturing sector, and we need to identify all ways and means to protect this sector, Mr. Speaker, from outside forces. So St. Lucia, together with the LDC's CARICOM states, have managed to secure an extension of Article 164. This regime speaks to promote industrial development in LDCs by providing beneficiary firms and their products a tariff wall of protection, as well as a set of support or accompanying measures for a finite time period of between 5 and 10 years. The regime covers approximately 14 product groups and benefits a significant number of our local manufacturing firms: water, beverage, flour, animal feed, paints, furniture. This is a commendable, thank you, sir. This is a commendable achievement which will certainly benefit our manufacturing sector and help them to grow by boosting their competitiveness, thus their output and capacity to employ more people. Mr. Speaker, there is, however, a stumbling block which we believe will be resolved very, very soon, because we were supposed to put this into effect April 1st. It has been deferred, however, due to some procedural matters which will be completed at the regional level. These procedural matters will be addressed at the upcoming 40th meeting at the COTED, which is currently, I believe it is ongoing. As we speak, we have 2 members of our ministry representing the country. Yes. We have also been able, Mr. Speaker, to revamp the region's sugar industry, and we were able to obtain suspension of the common external tariff to allow manufacturers to import refined white sugar from external sources. Mr. Speaker, competition policy. We have also been working in the area of competition policy in the CSME, more specifically attempting to finalize the draft policy for the treatment of mergers and acquisitions. It is my hope, Mr. Speaker, that a competitive policy framework will help to better regulate the market structures and conditions in the region so as to ensure fair trading and that consumers' rights are upheld and maximized. Mr. Speaker, I should also indicate that that St. Lucia is currently the chair of CARIFORUM, and on the 22nd of March this year, there was a signing ceremony held in St. Lucia where 9 CARIFORUM member states, including St. Lucia, signed the CARIFORUM UK Economic Partnership Agreement. This memorandum, Mr. Speaker, allows for the provisions of the CARIFORUM UK EPA, depending on when the UK, if and when they exit the European Union. So, Mr. Speaker, as I say, nous avons point devant, avant devant point, we just making sure that we are in a good place so that we can continue receiving preferential trade treatment in the event that UK leaves the EU. Mr. Speaker, ACP-EU post-Cotonou negotiations are ongoing. We would be aware that the Cotonou Agreement expires in 2020, and just for the benefit of colleagues and the country, just to indicate that under the agreement, the Cotonou Agreement, a cooperation framework for ACP countries, which St. Lucia is a member, benefited from the 9th, 10th, and the 11th EDF. The amounts allocated to CARIFORUM, including St. Lucia, just for the benefit of everybody, under the 10th EDF, the CARIFORUM received 165 million euro, and under the 11th EDF, CARIFORUM received 346 million euro. We would all be very familiar that one of the maybe the most significant benefits to St. Lucia was the construction of the OK-EU hospital. So, Mr. Speaker, the fundamental objective of the 10th and 11th EDF was poverty eradication through the promotion of sustainable regional developments. So, as I said, negotiations are in an advanced stage. There is a skeleton for future agreement. What pleases me as a minister in my capacity is that there appears to be a great focus on private sector development, which will go in line with our ministry's mandate, and I can see, Mr. Speaker, great things coming out of that. Mr. Speaker, I will speak very briefly on St. Lucia Bureau of Standards, which also forms part of one of the units that come under my due care, and I will speak a little more under the operation bill of this unit. But one of the achievements of the Bureau of Standards for the period under review was that we were able to successfully negotiate a revised tier structure, because if you turn to page 209, head 42, you recognize a subvention to the St. Lucia Bureau of Standards of 981,000. This, Mr. Speaker, is an amount that is very challenging to be able to meet the expenses of that unit, and they have continuously, been seeking various grants and other ways to improve, the work being done by that unit. And so there was some revision of some of the fees, Mr. Speaker, which would definitely assist their operations. Just to also indicate, Mr. Speaker, they were able to develop a national quality policy as a tool to increase trade and strengthen the quality infrastructure, develop standards relevant to various sectors, including agriculture, tourism, electrical safety, and the adaptation of ISO 45001 as in national standards. A total number of 17 standards were adopted, 7 were revisions of existing standards, the remaining 10 were new standards. As I said, Mr. Speaker, we will speak a little more to what happens in this unit in next week's debate. Mr. Speaker, I wish to move to Export St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Export St. Lucia, and I turn your attention to page 216, head 42, division 001, line 1501. Export St. Lucia receives a subvention of 1,673,648. In recent times, Mr. Speaker, the work coming from this unit has been exemplary, phenomenal, and all the other adjectives that you could use to describe, outstanding work that is being done. The two primary functions of Export St. Lucia are to export promotion and marketing, export development primarily in the form of enterprise development assistance, which is provided to existing, emerging, and new exporters. And these two principal functions are underpinned by two complementary secondary functions, namely export facilitation and the operation of a trade information system. Export St. Lucia is therefore established as the primary vehicle to give increased urgency to the development of the export sectors in St. Lucia, and is charged with carrying out the following core purposes and functions. So it serves as a focal point for exports through advocacy, information, dissemination, and public education, and undertake coordination of export development, and coordinate the export services support network. They carry out functions of export promotion marketing for the island. They oversee comprehensive human resource development planning for exports. Some of the major achievements of Export St. Lucia for the last financial year was a Cuba market entry. Some of the impediments that we were facing were addressed, and 3 major companies have been re-engaged with buyers in Cuba: Baron Foods, Harris Paints, and NatMed, with Baron Foods in current communication to explore the possibility of a second shipment. Export St. Lucia was also able to produce in Spanish, Mr. Speaker, a portfolio of St. Lucian exporters. I also would want to indicate, Mr. Speaker, that Export St. Lucia had a mission to Antigua and St. Kitts, which resulted in 5 new produce exporters introduced to Antiguan buyers, facilitated the shipment of agricultural produce to Antigua. 2 water manufacturers introduced to Antiguan buyers, 3 food beverage manufacturers referred to Antiguan buyers, 1 furniture manufacturer referred to an Antigua furniture outlet, and 1 ICT company introduced to Antiguan ICT provider. Mr. Speaker, we also successfully tested a shipment of breadfruit to Philadelphia. And Mr. Speaker, there's also significant work being done for other agricultural products. There have been some hurdles, Mr. Speaker, but we believe, Mr. Speaker, that these hurdles will be addressed very, very shortly. We recognize that some people are very interested in the shipment of cocoa sticks, condiment, dried fruits, and our chocolates. Okay, Mr. Speaker, our mangoes, our golden apples, and our soursops, Mr. Speaker, we are just ready to export once some of these issues are resolved. So, Mr. Speaker, I also would like to indicate, and Mr. Speaker, I'm extremely proud of the work that we have done with Algas Organics. There have been confirmed interest, Mr. Speaker, from a sports franchise in Miami, that the Algas Organics fertilizer to be used to grass the baseball fields in Miami, Mr. Speaker. And discussions with hotels in Miami to purchase Algas Organics for golf courses. So, Mr. Speaker, we have to be very, very proud of this young man. We have also been able, Mr. Speaker, to facilitate market entry of all algas into St. Vincent and a successful shipment into Trinidad and Tobago. We have participated in trade shows in Canada, and 3 clients representing the fashion industry participated in the trade show. The event provided the clients with an opportunity to interact directly with buyers, distributors, and shop owners looking to make a purchase. Nadia Fishcale's jewelry secured an order, 50 pieces of jewelry, delivered September 2018. Membet, Bell-Lisi Designs, Calabash Box. Mr. Speaker, there's just been so many local entrepreneurs who have benefited from the work of Export Solution. With your permission, Mr. Speaker, at the end of my presentation, I would like to play a short 4 to 5 minute clip of testimonials from locals. 4 to 5 of locals, Mr. Speaker, who has benefited from the work of Export Solution. I hope technology works with us. Mr. Speaker, there is such a long list of successes of Export Solution that, you know, it would take me out of the 1 hour range. So I just wish to encourage colleagues, you know, to find out the tremendous work that's being done by this agency, you know, and to continue to encourage, you know, the staff for the good work that they are doing. I know the honourable member for Dennery, but both the members for Dennery will be extremely proud to know that the Dennery segment has also benefited, Mr. Speaker. We provided support for 60 Dennery segment artists and management to participate in a US store. The honourable member for Central Castries would need to hear at some point. Mr. Speaker, I'm also extremely pleased, Mr. Speaker, that an artist from my community of Choiseul was able to sell an entire collection of his paintings through the assistance of the ambassador for the United Kingdom in the United Kingdom. So there's a lot of work happening, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member, let me inform you, you have 15 minutes in which to
complete. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Considering some of my colleagues, you know, were very shocked. Mr. Speaker, I would move quickly to the work being done by the Consumer Affairs Department. The Consumer Affairs Department has a responsibility for promoting a fair trading environment within which the consumer interest is protected. This involves providing the enabling environment and institutional support that would create avenue for redress and access to justice when rights of consumers are violated. I turn your attention, Mr. Speaker, to Head 42, page 209, Division 32. So, Mr. Speaker, some of the work being done, consumer education and outreach done through various means. Several projects were done, including research on insight into utility companies to raise awareness of consumers on utility-related issues. School garden, kitchen garden project aimed at promoting sustainable production and consumption. The study of the Peter management area in Soufrière to assist the PMA in its public relations strategy. Mr. Speaker, some of the monitoring that has been done by the unit is the monitoring and surveillance of school textbook and prices, cement prices, commodity price monitoring, fuel price monitoring, consumer complaints, Mr. Speaker. There were like 22 complaints lodged in the department and 20 have been resolved. The long-awaited Consumer Protection Act, Mr. Speaker, that has been passed in Parliament but have not been given a date for commencement. We are in consultation, Mr. Speaker, with key stakeholders to further strengthen and bring into force the Act. And I have been assured, Mr. Speaker, based on the aggressive work by the department and the stakeholders, that before the end of this year, Mr. Speaker, we would see some significant inroads into bringing this date into force. Mr. Speaker, I wish to advise Parliament and colleagues and St. Lucia that the Consumer Affairs Department is in the advanced stage of relocation and they will be now in the city center, which is at the corner of Mikud and Coral Street, and that is in an effort to enhance service delivery to all consumers. Mr. Speaker, I was actually very pleased this year that I did not hear from any of the members opposite, as has been customary in previous years, the whole issue of a subvention to the commercial supply warehouse. I take it that they have finally understood. I take it that they have finally understood. Mr. Speaker, I will save you the embarrassment, and Mr. Speaker, the government supply warehouse employs 28 employees. There are no payables. Stock on hand currently is in excess of 3 million. Mr. Speaker, we at the Consumer Affairs Division have been able to better negotiate prices for sugar and rice. As a result of that, Mr. Speaker, we've been able to balance the shortfall in the price of flour. So, Mr. Speaker, there has been a lot of talk as to government not making a subvention to the government warehouse. Just let me give you some historical information. In 2015-2016, Mr. Speaker, government allocated a subvention of 7 million to the government warehouse. At the end of the financial year, there was a deficit of $4,814,059. At the end of 2016-2017, a subvention of $4 million. There was a deficit of 1.6 million. In 2017-2018, Mr. Speaker, there was no subvention given. There was a deficit of 1.9, and in 2018-2019, still no subvention was given, and there was a deficit of $217,320. Now, Mr. Speaker, I don't want the deficit to make you think negative, because when we look at inventory, as I said, there is currently inventory of over $3 million. So the deficit is just a book figure, and it does not really reflect the actual performance of the department. Mr. Speaker, common sense would indicate that if the government of St. Lucia was not, or had taken away the subvention, it would automatically mean that the price of goods would have gone up. The prices of goods has not changed from 2008. Rice, flour, and sugar, the prices have not changed from 2008, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I will tell you how it works. Because we have been able to better negotiate the prices of rice and sugar, Mr. Speaker, one of the things we have been doing at the consumer warehouse, we have all bakers are purchasing flour $14 less than the actual price of a bag of flour. So because we have been able to negotiate better prices, rice and sugar, we'll be able to offset the losses from flour. Straight mathematics, no kind of difficulty in understanding that, Mr. Speaker. So there's no reason for government to have it's not required, Mr. Speaker, because there is no impact to the end user. Now, somebody may want to argue that if government gives a subvention, then maybe you can lower the prices even further. That might be the argument. But, Mr. Speaker, why? Why? Because at the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, the people who truly require these reductions, okay, are getting it wholesale with everybody else, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I just want to indicate some of the people who benefit, from the support program that the ministry, the Consumer Affairs Department, and I would love you to come next week, because there's a lot more on that, So we have provide support to the school feeding program, despite not having a subvention. We provide support to the Youth at Risk program for the Ministry of Equity, support to NGOs and community-based groups registered with the Ministry of Equity, which provides for the needy and underprivileged, so Council for Persons with Disabilities, the Marian Home, Cornerstone, Soup Kitchen in Supre, etc. And particularly around the festive season, you get a lot of other requests for various meals that people want to do, and many of my colleagues on the other side and also on this side benefit from some of the donations that we make from the government supply warehouse. So I really hope we can put that to rest, Mr. Speaker, with regards to the issue of subvention to the government warehouse. Mr. Speaker, quickly, I know time is running out. One of my focuses that I would like to achieve during my term is to see the realization of an incubator program. This business incubation program, Mr. Speaker, it has been acknowledged as one of the principal means of providing a comprehensive range of business support services that contribute to the successful establishment of new, micro and small enterprises and the growth of fledgling ones. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm very, very pleased that by December 2019, Invest St. Lucia will be able to provide startups and existing small businesses with business planning, mentorship, access to equity and debt capital, and other key business support services. Obviously, our ministry will be working very close in the operationalization of this program. I expect to see this program rolled out, in the north initially and in the south of the island, Mr. Speaker. There's a lot of other components to this program. I know people have continuously, happed at my referring to the incubator program as a warehouse, Mr. Speaker, but it will come to reality, and we will see this thing working for the benefit of St. Lucians, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I end and the contribution and we hear the testimonials, I just want to thank my new permanent secretary, who's in the audience today, former Comptroller of Inland Revenue. Mr. Speaker, she has come into the department, and the work that she has been doing has been incredible, and I want to thank her. Reps come and go. The permanent secretaries are the one who remain to continue the work of government, Mr. Speaker, and I want to wish her the very best in the coming years. So, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I would like to indulge my parliamentarians with as I said, a 42-minute testimonial, and let us hope that you want me to ask for 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes, Miss. Come on, give me 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes. Thank you. He would have, Mr. He would have. Okay, are you ready? Yeah. Can we?
Mr. Speaker, in the interest of listening to what the minister has to say, I would like to move for suspension of Standing Order 30-5 to allow the minister 10 more minutes.
Honourable members, the question is that Standing Order 4210 be invoked and that the minister be given additional 10 minutes. I now put a question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it.
Thank you, sir. I'll repeat you one day. Ready? Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
I've had a long and mutually beneficial, I would say, relationship with Export St. Lucia for quite some time now. We have worked together on several different initiatives, so usually when I get an email from them, I get very excited because I know that something is brewing. When I saw that this was a trade show in Canada, and in particular a trade show for accessories, because you find accessories tends to be overlooked, especially when you go to the shows and there's clothing there. The accessories don't stand out. I thought this was like the perfect opportunity for me to be part of this initiative so that my bags can stand out, because people always say, oh, why don't you go into clothing as well? And I absolutely refuse. So I was just very grateful for Export St. Lucia for reaching out to me, giving me the opportunity to apply and accepting my application. I think this is just another step up in our great relationship that we have with each other.
Since they were directly involved with exporting, generally for St. Lucia, I find that was a good opportunity to, find out what their work entails and how could they assist us in better able to export more produce from St. Lucia. I have gained a contact in the US, and I did more or less trial shipment, and the result was very good. So I'm hoping that TIPA and I can develop a greater relationship where more produce can be exported to the US, which is the most difficult market for us.
We have tried on our own to enter a number of markets. And, you know, there have been some successes and some, I don't want to say failures, we've learned. Lessons learned. But I think that the services that TIPA provides is integral to any company that is looking to scale and export. And it is very important to work with an organization like TIPA who has the, how would I say it, who has the know-how, number one, but who has the image that when they approach a distributor or an organization in an established market, it's not a company they don't know coming to them like Argas. It is the Trade Export Promotion Agency of St. Lucia presenting a product to you to carry. And it really gives us that legitimacy that I don't think that a new startup would have on its own. So it is very important, and it is very welcomed.
Caribbean Awning is the representative for the OECS islands for PVC cladding for ceiling and walls. And therefore it is up to us to find suitable representatives in the various islands and persons that we can export to. As you know, it's a unique product in that it reduces the heat, it is termite resistant, it's already painted, there's very little maintenance, and we can provide you with a 10-year warranty. So therefore it is more economical than wood or drywall. And as a result, whereas I had an initial contact in Dominica, but TIPA actually, or should I say Export St. Lucia, actually assisted me and got in contact with the Ministry of Education in Dominica, who ordered a container of PVC cladding for the schools in Dominica. And of course, it's used here in the schools. It's very important because the termite is a major problem in the Caribbean. And therefore this product will last 10 years, and in some cases I've seen some of the product last more than 10 years.
Record keeping training has benefited Rainforest Food in record keeping as well as in creating financial statements for the business. We're thankful to TIPA for coming today to ensure that we're doing we're recording the right way, and whereby we would be able to get proper financial statements.
One of the things that I really appreciate is that TIPA has been an organization that has, even in a short space of time, proven themselves on a local standpoint, regional, and especially right now an international standpoint. With this workshop being done today, I think that they have really put effort into trying to really get the local produce on an international level in terms of standard and in terms of marketing, in terms of exposure. Because I find that over the years it's been very, very difficult to actually get that from one organization.
I want to take this opportunity to really thank TIPA. I mean, TIPA adopted me. I didn't even have to come in and sign anything. I mean, TIPA adopted me 2 years or 2.5 years ago. Last year I went to Carifesta and they literally prepared me because I wanted to go. St. Lucia was not being represented, and TIPA ensured that I went to Carifesta. This year I said to them, I am nominated for this award, and they have stepped in again. I mean, financially, yes, they have assisted me, but not only that, the mere fact that TIPA they check on me every single day, ensuring that everything is okay, that I'm preparing myself for this production, and they always want to know what's happening. And like I said, I am going to keep TIPA informed of everything I'm doing, because again, this is an organization that helps people out, that wants to make sure that every young entrepreneur in St. Lucia work is out there, and I am grateful that TIPA has given me this opportunity to be a partner.
I thank my colleagues for the indulgence. Mr. Speaker, you note that the technical challenge, I still have to use my phone, so maybe you can make a request in your budget next year to have this audio, addressed. But I want to thank, my colleagues, and I want to indicate that I support the budget of $1.5 billion. And in our debate next week, we shall also go into the areas of how the economy has grown. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Minister for Youth Development and Sports and member for Dennery South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, honorable members, let me say a hearty good morning to each and every one of you. Mr. Speaker, during my presentation this morning, I'll talk a little about governance, about our youth. Then we will go very quickly into our youth programs in the estimates. I will discuss briefly also our commitment to our people, and we are talking about all St. Lucians, not some. And we will talk about the National Sports Infrastructural Development Program, and we will also discuss the Dennery segment as it relates to our debate, and specifically Dennery South. Mr. Speaker. And then there will be some acknowledgements. But Mr. Speaker, before I go into those items that I've just outlined, in listening to the member for Dennery North, Mr. Speaker, I don't know, I should just only say that life is somewhat crude. I say this because, Mr. Speaker, apparently this is not the same individual that I know. Or if the member has gotten what we call in patois absolution. Because when this particular member was in government, his behavior, when it comes to the treatment of how he dealt with certain segments of our society, this is not the same individual. And let me just give you a few examples, Mr. Speaker. Now, Mr. Speaker, you know, at some point, well, both governments have, when it comes to, well, we have a stimulus package. And we're trying to help the underprivileged members of our societies. And Mr. Speaker, I was in opposition. This member was in government as Minister for Youth Development and Sports. I never quarrel about that. And if it's not for the behavior of the member in the House today, maybe this will never be known by the St. Lucian public. So that is why I say, I'm wondering if this is the same individual. We're talking about equity and fair distribution and all the likes. I suspect there's repentance, and which is good. But let me just give you that example. So this stimulus package is handed out to the different constituencies. You know, every single year, every single stimulus, while I was in opposition between 2011 and 2016, when it comes to that particular line item, the then parliamentarian for Rep for Dennery North took this away from the people of Dennery South and gave it to one person, each and every stimulus.
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order invoking 45.5. The honourable member is misleading the House. I had no ministerial responsibility for any stimulus package in the previous administration. And for him to tell this House, and by extension the people of St. Lucia, that I was presiding over stimulus and taking stimulus away is misleading, it is mischievous, and I'm calling on him, Mr. Speaker, to withdraw that statement.
Honorable member for Dennery South, you heard the member for Dennery North, so
Mr. Speaker,
he's indicating that he had no responsibility for issues.
Well, all of us are aware of that, Mr. Speaker. Every single one of us in this.
So all I'm saying to you, as you proceed, so.
Mr. Speaker, I had responsibility for Dennery South, and I kept track of where the programs that were allocated to Dennery South, what was happening to it. Okay? And I'm telling you in this honorable House that every time that there was a stimulus where there were $1,000 packages that were supposed to have been given to the people of Dennery South, it was allocated to a DA out of Dennery North. It was allocated to a DA. I say a Denerian A. No, a Denerian A. A DA. A Denerian A. Mr. Speaker. Even right now as we speak, you know, this particular government is saying, you know, let us be a little fair to everybody. And try and allocate some resources. We always do that. Try and allocate some resources or some projects to the members opposite. You know what happens? Just recently, 9 bridges had to be painted in Mabuya, in Dennery North. The projects still went to DA. Okay? So, Mr. Speaker, that is not the same individual who spoke earlier on this morning. It cannot be. Let us go a little further, Mr. Speaker. Let us go a little further. And I have said this on countless occasions in this honorable House. And talking about this government didn't do anything or has not done anything for 3 years, I'm not going to go waste all the people's time and go through a whole list that will take me the whole day. But I will mention, Mr. Speaker, I will mention that the Dennery North Road between Larishus and Olio has never been in the condition that it is in right now. For all my life, I have lived in Olio, I have lived in Dennery. And I have been on earth throughout that time, and I have been in Dennery throughout that time, and traversing that particular road. It was done for the last 3 years that we have been in government. Talking about nothing has been done in this country. So is this the same person that we are talking about, Mr. Speaker? Is this the same person? And, Mr. Speaker, I have spoken about the Dennery playing field, the Dennery playing field that we started while we were in government. And the statements made by the Minister of Youth Development and Sports then, talking about he would make me look good if he did the field for the Dennery people. Make me look good. Okay? But, Mr. Speaker, we can also go to the fact that when we got into government, the NLA, National Lotteries Authorities, was almost $2 million in red. Almost $2 million in red. And then we're still talking about contracts were already handed over to persons who had to do the Austin Hill Road. You know what took place at that time, Mr. Speaker? You know the real story? Electioneering. Giving people contracts, black is white, for the support, knowing that there are no funds allocated for these roads. It happened in Dennery, it happened in Dennery South. People had contracts left, right, and helter-skelter to do projects in Dennery with no allocation. In a lot of instances, this government allowed the contracts to continue, especially in Dennery South. Okay? When individuals in my constituency, it doesn't matter what you are, it doesn't matter if you're blue, red, yellow, black. When you have an opportunity, I allow you to shine. Okay? But I am saying this is not the same individual that we're talking about. Yes, that's ST4. That's my trademark. ST4. So, Mr. Speaker, almost $2 million in the red. Okay, you know what was an underlying cause of that? Being $2 million in the red? One of the underlying cause of that was the minister's account. You know what took place? Containers of materials used to be bought. Containers of materials, Mr. Speaker, to provide for the comrades in the constituency for electionary
I want
purposes.
to invoke 45.5 again. This is the second time to memory that the minister, on a point of order, invoking 45.5. I cannot recall, Mr. Speaker, that during my tenure, the National Lotteries Authority bought containers of equipment. And the member cannot prove that. And I'm asking him to withdraw this malicious statement. Containers of things bought or sporting equipment bought by the National Lotteries Authority. He needs to withdraw that. You need to come better than that.
Honorable Member Dennery South.
Is it one container, Mr. Speaker, or two?
Honorable Member Dennery South. I am following you closely, and I know the phrase minister's account bring out sentiments because we've experienced it in the past. So I'm going to say, and I have ruled on that phrase before. I'm not going to rule directly on the phrase, but be careful. All I'll say to you, be careful what statement you make, which may give rise or may tend to show any inappropriate behavior which we cannot account for on behalf of any member of this honorable house.
Okay, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, the fact remains that even now, certain senators still have equipment out of those containers that were purchased by those funds and were distributing them for electioneering purposes. But, Mr. Speaker, the point is that this is not the same individual. So if you've received God, congratulations. So, Mr. Speaker, we are a government, Mr. Speaker, and I'm talking about governance, real governance, that is. We are a government entrusted by the people with the responsibility of the stewardship of the resources of our nation. As a government, we humbly accept this mandate. This is a mission that we take very, very seriously, as we are committed to providing good governance to the people of St. Lucia. Mr. Speaker, this is why we focus on our mission. Our mission of creating a new and better St. Lucia for all through the development of a clear vision, fostering strong relationships, and through innovative action. So, Mr. Speaker, our commitment to visionary leadership is based on a balanced expression of spiritual, of emotional, and physical dimensions. It stems from our philosophy dedicated to aggressively pursuing the wrongs that needs resistance and helping the cause that needs assistance. This is our compass of leadership. This is our economic course set for navigation, and we are doing a damn good job of it. Mr. Speaker, let me quickly turn to our youth. This fuel, the momentum and the passion that drive our people to grow and to develop in this country falls squarely on our human potential. Statistics informs us that approximately 63% or 9 million of the Caribbean community's population is under the age of 30. Our youthful population, therefore, form the building blocks of our development as a people. So, Mr. Speaker, this is why, as a government, we are employing special policies and resources to develop and facilitate the involvement of our youth in the social and in the economic development of our country. Mr. Speaker, at the very core of these policies, programs, and resources devoted to the most energetic sector of our population, our youth, involves building resilience and addressing the issue of vulnerability and providing diverse opportunities for our young people. Mr. Speaker, in order to achieve this goal and to engender sustainable growth of the economy of our young people, we have to be strategically positioned and prepared to play our role in building that resilience and making the country more competitive in the global marketplace. Mr. Speaker, the Governor General, in his phone speech, reminded us that we are St. Lucia, a country of boundless talent, some of it untapped, and lots of energy. Our proactive and visionary leadership as a people-centered government seeks to tap the limitless talent of our young people through critical provisions of the 2019-2020 estimates of revenue and expenditure. So, Mr. Speaker, it is through this allocation or these allocations of providing vital resources, focused commitment, support, and by creating and providing new opportunities that many of the economic and social challenges which hinder the ability of our youth to contribute to our economic growth and development can be tackled in a sustainable way. Our approach as a government in the 2019-2020 fiscal year focuses on the desire to further empower our people, particularly our youth. We do so with the full intention to have them tap into the new opportunities that we are creating as we pursue our national goal of inclusive growth. We recognize, Mr. Speaker, that we are created equal in this world, but we do not have the very same talents and giftings. Okay? A Trump is not an Obama, for example. Everyone is a little more fluent than others. So don't try and play as if you are holier than thou, and you're the most educated individual on this earth. If you were educated, a lot of the things that you did, you would never have done it. The main purpose of these programs, is to build Mr. Speaker. And if we look at our Youth Leadership Development Initiative, which includes the Beckwith International Leadership Project, which is reflected on page 486 of the estimates in section 3. And the main purpose of the program is to build self, is to build your identity as an individual, and to be able to develop your community. These initiatives form the basis for young people to begin leadership clubs and societies in schools, where they also begin their journey in learning to persuade, influence, and listen to others. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, under program head 1203, page 486, $137,600 is allocated to training of youth development. This represents an increase of $46,600 over the last fiscal year. Mr. Speaker, it is through these vital resources that our government are providing for our young people. Another program, Mr. Speaker, on page 481 of the 2019-20 estimates of revenue and expenditure of the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, a total of $1,123,747 is allocated on the program head 036 or program area 036. Mr. Speaker, we remain focused on the empowerment of our youth, and as such, the ministry is putting its best foot forward. Mr. Speaker, once our teams have mastered the elements of group leadership, they will move on to bigger things, which is to lead a community. This is where we begin the real work of training the future leaders of our country. Mr. Speaker, youth leadership is important for the future of our community and, by extension, our nation. These are critical programs to empower, to propel and inspire the next generation of young leaders. Next, Mr. Speaker, I move to commitment to the people. Mr. Speaker, this government made it clear to all St. Lucians on page 40 of our principles of commitment, our manifesto, that upon forming the government, we will provide and upgrade sporting facilities in all communities and expand the provision of lights on playing fields and other sporting facilities. And it is known categorically clear throughout the length and breadth of St. Lucia that this is ongoing, that we are making the necessary strides to provide for our young people. Mr. Speaker, that promise and commitment has now moved from vision to action. Okay, so we had the vision, and now we are putting this into action. On 5th of April 2019, just recently, Mr. Speaker, the subturning ceremony was held in Soufrière to commence the building of the Soufrière Mini Stadium and the Ruby Cricket Ground. This ceremony signifies the commencement of several projects of that nature, which will be taking place island-wide. And very quickly, Mr. Speaker, the National Sports Infrastructure Development Program. On page 495 of the estimates, Mr. Speaker, it speaks to the National Sports Infrastructure Development Program. This project will see the following improvements at the mini stadium in Soufrière. And we are not just providing these facilities, Mr. Speaker. We are seeing to it that our schools are taken care of, that every area on the island, every zone is given the necessary attention. An international FIFA-approved football pitch with synthetic turf will be laid down shortly. A 400-meter synthetic athletic track will be constructed there. And the plan, Mr. Speaker, is to have about 5 of these track and field areas in St. Lucia. And from Soufrière, I'm sure the next track might be at the Grand Riviere playing field, right next to the FIFA Goal project, or as part of the FIFA Goal project. And I have mentioned this on several occasions. Then we will have a track in Grosile, and then the talks will begin earnestly for us to make plans to see what we can do in terms of the Masha ground and the Mindo Philippa, to see if we can turn these facilities into one massive center for our sportsmen and women of this country. Upgrading of the playing courts for basketball, netball and volleyball, that's at Soufrière. A 5-on-5 football pitch for small girls will also be constructed. A support building with changing rooms, comfort stations and concession booths also will be constructed. Portable modular seating is the way that we're thinking we should go at this moment. And also a river walk path will also be constructed in Soufrière. Mr. Speaker, another facility will be constructed simultaneously at Soufrière, and we're talking about the new cricket ground at Ruby, which will consist of a new cricket field, synthetic courts for basketball, netball and volleyball, a 25-meter swimming pool with 8 lanes, a support building with changing rooms, comfort station and concession booths, and a children's playground. And they keep talking time and time again about $42 million and this and that. This is where the $42 million is going to, Mr. Speaker.
How much more?
So, Mr. Speaker, the upgrading of the identified sports facilities will also shortly commence in Deriso. And when we go there, we do a comprehensive job. We go to Grosile, we do something very comprehensive too. In Dennery South, Dennery people have waited for a very long time, but I have decided that I'm not going to go and rush this. We are going to do it properly. And then Dennery Stone is coming just down the road. In addition to that, Mr. Speaker, I should just mention here, as I mentioned Dennery, that one of the reasons that, we are not too hasty in trying to complete the Dennery football field is because DVRP, which I'm going to talk about a little lower down in my presentation, DVRP is looking at the flooding in the Dennery area. So we want to see how this is going to affect the football field that we want to put down and so on. So it's better that we collaborate with Ministry of Economic Affairs to make sure that this thing is done properly, so that when we don't want to put down the field and then, whatever works we're doing for the drainage will interfere with it. So we are waiting for that from the Ministry of Economic Affairs under the DVRP for us to continue and have the most beautiful and wonderful and successful play area on island or in the Caribbean in Dennery. And also, Mr. Speaker, Micoud North, we will be going there to do the very same thing, and we're also going to have a swimming pool there also. Mr. Speaker, more details will be articulated in the policy debate. Let me quickly, and although I have already started this, talk about the magnificent constituency of Dennery South. Mr. Speaker, the joy of serving the wonderful people of Dennery South is one which I undertake with humility, with pride, with dedication, and with passion. Only yesterday, the member for Central Cashews told you, talk is cheap. It is action that counts. Okay, I don't know if that's the exact way she put it, but this is essentially what she was trying to say. And she's taking this right out of my alley. You know, she's looking for a microscope and she's looking at me. And she's only seen me, no one else. That talk is cheap. It is action that matters. And I will do everything in my power. I will be deliberate, I will be systematic, or I have been, as a matter of fact. Very systematic, very pragmatic in delivering to the people of Dennery South. And to tell you frankly, I don't know when I decide to leave this thing alone, I don't know what Dennery will be missing. I think it will be nothing. Dennery will be well taken care of under my stewardship, Mr. Speaker. So Dennery South continues to be transformed to a beacon of joy, hope, and tremendous opportunity to enhance the social and economic development of the people. So there are a few things that I will just mention here very quickly without wasting your time or the rest of the members' time. So, Mr. Speaker, Dennery South is earmarked as one of the communities under the PROUD project. And I will just say the Green Mountain area, the Laput area, the Lakai and Lima areas are down under the program of what we call rationalization of lands. I mean, the people have waited for a very long time to own a little piece of the state of St. Lucia. And I think under this program this year, some people in Dennery are going to smile. The residents of these communities will finally have title to the lands to make them proud and legitimate owners of the lands they have occupied for decades. Road projects in the constituency. I am sure the Minister of Infrastructure, the member for Cashews North, will detail the extensive work that will be undertaken in Dennery South over the next or during this fiscal year. So I'm just going to gloss over this for now. They have bridges that will be rehabilitated to include safer railings for the safety of the pedestrians and general public. We have asked for guardrails for the protection of our school children on the highway, on the Dennery Highway. That's next to the police station, to protect the Dennery Infant School and the Dennery Daycare. And this is surely going to take place during this financial year. And I just spoke about the DVRP program a while ago. Under the DVRP initiative, we will address flood mitigation as it relates to the playing fields and the Dennery Hospital. More will be discussed on that at the policy debate. And even more information will be forthcoming from the Minister of Economic Development as far as what is happening with the progress of the Dennery Hospital. Again, Mr. Speaker, we have announced very elaborate plans for improving what takes place at what is known as the Daito in the village. This thing has been an eyesore. It's not as progressive as we would have liked. I've had major discussions with the Minister of Agriculture. He has been talking to the Japanese to see what can be done to improve the lives of our fishermen in Dennery. and I'm certain he is going to give us a little more information on this. So, Mr. Speaker, all in all, we live in a technologically advanced global economy, as the member for Denry's North just discovered today. It is imperative that as a government, we encourage the holistic development of our people, especially the youth. This is to ensure that our people do not only attain academic qualification, but also the soft skills and discipline necessary to thrive in this global climate. So we will be providing the facilities, all the facilities that our people need to excel. And then we will also be providing all the programs and so on, all the coaches, all the support structures needed, to have this thing done seamlessly. It's not going to be easy, Mr. Speaker, but we are trying. All around the island, capacity needs to be built, in our sporting clubs, in our associations, at the ministry, you name it. But it's time that we put our heads together. It's time we forget about this political thing that is keeping us behind, and for us to work for the people of this country.
Just say that.
So this government, Mr. Speaker, remains committed to seeking and creating opportunities for the development and growth of the people of St. Lucia. I'm confident that the programs and initiatives which we will embark during this fiscal year will equip our people in that regard. So on that note, Mr. Speaker, I have to say thank you to a set of friends of ours who has always been there from the time I entered government. And I want to say thank you, Mr. Speaker, to the Taiwanese government and the Taiwanese people for all the provisions they have made for us and all the resources they have made available to us, physical and human resources, to help us achieve our goals at all levels on the island. So once again, thank you to the Taiwanese embassy and to the Taiwanese people. I also want, before I take my seat, Mr. Speaker, to thank all the sportsmen and women and the youth of this country who have worked tirelessly during the last financial year. They brought a lot of joy to us in this country. Those who went out there and won team titles in cricket, in netball, you name it. Those who won individual titles in track and field, we salute you, we applaud you, we say thank you for your service to our country. Thank you for making St. Lucia known. And I just want to tell you that we, even if it's been done quietly, Mr. Speaker, we are doing whatever it takes to change the landscape, to provide you with everything that you need to excel. On this note, Mr. Speaker, I say thank you and God bless you.
Member for Bamono.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask for a suspension of this Honorable House until 1:30.
Honorable members, the question is that this House stands suspended until 1:30. I now put a question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. House is suspended until 1:30.
PM today. So you've been watching the debate on the estimates of revenue and expenditure for 2019-2020 in the sum of $1,591,589,000. Following the debate of the estimates of revenue and expenditure will be the presentation of the appropriation bill next week, where the Prime Minister will give his budget address on Monday, April 15th, 2019.
We are all here